You see the sigh of relief? That is a sigh of relief after 1020 days. As we all know, we waited for this moment. The entire nation waited for this moment. It is the king who is back again among scoring runs. We saw that through the course of this Asia Cup, how he was getting back in group. We here on Boomer 11 analyze his every shot as to whether he was looking back in form. And finally, the day has come. It's this day in history. It's 8th of September, guys. I know it's a big day all across the world. It just we are hearing the news also that Queen Elizabeth has passed away in England. So a massive, massive day, and also happy on him to all people who are celebrating it. The king has certainly arrived for all the Malayalis and all across India for sure. So I have Jaren and Sandipani with me, and welcome everyone into Boomer Live as well. Firstly, coming to Jaren, we all waited for this moment, right? I'm right now. Everyone's losing words because you do not know how to express this happiness. We all were waiting for this. Even Star Sports made that clipping for Sultan because they didn't know when to make it. Yeah, they didn't know when to play the song. Every series, every time, Abhi aayega, and when nobody expected, it came. So, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure some intern at Star Sports is going to be very happy. Like my brief period in 2020 had made that. But yeah, it's great. We've been waiting for this for so long. Virat himself has been waiting for it for so long. And as the phrase which is being thrown around, the monkey is finally off his back. 71st century. I mean, it's such a great achievement. I mean, it's very difficult to know that Virat Kohli, who was scoring centuries every series. Every series, as many matches, that many centuries. We're so used to seeing him score a century. It's been 3 years now, and whew, sigh of relief for everyone. I think. Great to see he's back, and the best part is he was opening the innings. So I think something that I've been saying on this show for so long, Virat Kohli should open the innings because this is what he can do. He's someone who is very good at accelerating at the right moment because he's an anchor which comes along with a nitrous boost because he's that kind of a player. Once he's set, once he has his roots in the batting lineup, once he's read the pitch, then there's no stopping this Virat Kohli. And obviously, the Afghanistan team did not have the skills or the fortitude probably to stop him, but they dropped a catch, which was a great thing for us because if the catch had been taken, it could have been just one of those shows for us. But luckily, the catch was dropped early on, and Virat just capitalized on it. It's just a great innings. I mean,
Absolutely.
also, one thing I hope I don't forget. Virat Kohli scored this at 200, the strike rate of 200. So all you guys who were, everyone was questioning his strike rates. Well, it's time for you to shut up
I
finally.
mean, if you look at his innings throughout the course of the Asia Cup, it was in excess of 135 whenever he scored those 50s, or even the knock against Pakistan was close to 140. Even the knock against Hong Kong was close to 150 as well. And except that first innings against Pakistan, where again he could have possibly capitalized and scored another 50, he missed out on that opportunity. As we keep saying in this live, he totally missed out on the opportunity there. And especially in the game against Sri Lanka, it was so unlike Virat Kohli to play that high. You know what Virat Kohli can possibly bring an impact when he's set. Sandeepani, we have here time and time again spoken in this live as to how Virat Kohli needs to just clear his mind out and play, just be himself. But today he was just himself. You saw the old shots being back. You saw it in the game against Pakistan. We were here, actually complimenting it that jab which he played towards towards long on. That was typical Virat Kohli shot when he plays at his prime. And today you saw all the shots were back, especially the shots which he plays of Yorkers when he was at his prime, where he opens the face of the bat, it hits it near to the point, where he plays those flicks over near to the square leg. It was typical Virat Kohli kind of an innings. Sandeep, how delighted are you to speak about it? Because here we question some of his innings, but at the same time, we all were desperate. 1 month entirety we were talking about Virat Kohli, shatak kab aayega, shatak kab hai. Aaya to abhi.
No, I think we were very vocal about the fact that Virat Kohli was scoring some good runs. He scored 60 against I think Pakistan in that game. He scored 50. He got a 59 against Hong Kong as well, and he just had that off day with against Sri Lanka. I mean, he just wanted to play that flick way too early, and then got dismissed for a duck. But yeah, a special person, a special knock tonight, and I think it's been on the cards for quite some time now. 122 runs off 61 balls. I mean, not just to score that century, he looked to be in such good rhythm that he continued to accelerate right till the end. Because we could see that Pant on the other hand was very, like, he was struggling early on, but at the end of the day he was just happy to hand the strike back to Kohli. That just goes to show the kind of player he is. And finally, after almost 3 years, the 71st century finally comes, and now we can say proudly say that the highest and the second highest century scorers across all formats in the world are Sachin Tendulkar and Virat Kohli. He just equaled Ricky Ponting's record of 71st centuries. So it's been a long time. A Kohli a record that we expected to come way back in December 2019, maybe. But it's been long. But it's so good to see him scoring that century in T20 internationals. Broke a lot of jinx. And I think tonight the Afghanistan team just did not turn up. They were
Mm.
just hammered. I mean, both with the bat and the ball as well.
Yeah,
So
rightfully
I definitely
Bhuvneshwar
felt the
Kumar.
game
Let's
yesterday
also give him
really.
credit over there. Bhuvneshwar
Yeah.
Kumar's spell was one of the best you have seen in T20 cricket for the longest period of time. What an opening
I mean, 4 overs,
spell that
4
was.
runs, and 5 wickets. I mean, the
Yeah,
wickets are more than the number of runs. So I mean, and
absolutely.
the spell was so like it was. It was not just to players who were out of form. I think it some of the deliveries were outstanding to players like
Mm.
Najibullah Zadran or somebody like Rahmanullah Gurbaz who
Yeah,
were in the best of touches. But I was very impressed to see that no matter what Ibrahim Zadran decided to play through the innings, they did not give up. They at the end of the day they managed to play the entirety of the 20 overs. I mean
mm.
that was something that Afghanistan will be happy about. But I think this Afghanistan team, we were very vocal that if like this is not what we'll see in Australia. I mean they're going to
Yeah.
struggle in Australia if this is what we are going to expect from them, because the pitches in Australia it's going to be fast, and then
But I think, I
it
mean,
is it is
Sanjivani, if
going
I
to have.
may,
Yeah.
don't you think that I mean, for me personally, I feel, we cannot blame Afghanistan. We cannot hold it against Afghanistan as well. This is the Indian team which came after a long rest, when an Afghanistan team which has
No,
probably
I mean
played
this is
their
this
most
has been
difficult
the
match
template
yesterday.
Indian team getting knocked out of a multinational tournament and then coming back to defeat the minnows, so as to say. But Afghanistan
Yeah.
in no way were the minnows in this tournament. But they performed really well. But I think their performance was limited.
I mean, if
Uh,
you have to talk about
like
Afghanistan
it was
also,
really limited to the group
let's
stage.
also put into
Yeah.
consideration they played a game last night, a high
Yeah,
octane game. It was never
correct.
easy for them to pick themselves up
Yeah, I
from
think
that loss.
it just broke their spirits. I think
Yeah,
that was one of
absolutely,
the main
absolutely.
reasons that they could not.
But
Yeah.
yet,
And
yet it
they
was.
played the most difficult matches in Asia Cup in the span of 2 days. So I
Yeah,
think you
true.
can't blame them as well. They've tried everything, and yesterday was
And then
demoralizing.
you have to take into account the fact that they were definitely affected by the loss yesterday. I mean, to be in that position against Pakistan,
Yeah.
9 down, 11 12 record of 7 balls when Asif Ali was dismissed, and given the scenario of that rivalry, that Pakistan has always managed to get the better of Afghanistan. Like they just surprise Afghanistan at the later stages of the game and just take the game away. So I think
Yeah.
how they won it actually must have really deflated the team as an unit. And I think India were like, this is the Indian team that we were expecting in the Asia Cup. They did not turn up like this against Pakistan or Sri Lanka. But yeah, facing when up against teams like Hong Kong and Afghanistan, India are just the bullies. We might as call it was a bullying sort of performance. They just bullied
Yes,
Afghanistan
they
both
did,
with
and
bat
you
and ball.
expected this from Indian team from the game one. I mean, to be very honest, at this very point, you have a lot to discuss regarding Indian team's balance also, because we've been advocating the fact that KL Rahul in the team could possibly disjoin the balance, and we are seeing it right now. Why Virat Kohli should be opening in T20 cricket as well. I think we'll delve deep into it further into the show, but let's also now talk about what is next for Afghanistan before we delve right into India's performance. Jaren, I know it was a deflated Afghanistan side. It was not going to be easy for them to pick themselves up from last night. No time for recovery. Dehydration is a factor. But still, it wasn't going to be an easy tournament for them. They knew this prior, that even if they had won yesterday, they had to still come and play today, because then only it makes any sense. How tough is it for a team after a loss like that to come and show up and to play the kind of cricket? Because Nabi also made it very clear in this post-match review that it was not easy. The players were jaded, from mentally jaded and also physically affected as well.
I mean, we saw the scenes yesterday. If whenever the camera was panning towards the Afghanistani players, we just saw how distraught, especially for someone like a Fazal Faruqi was. And it was just not a good. It was not good scenes there. They just completely upset, and we saw that in today's match as well. Uh, I mean, they could have seized the moment when they had Virat Kohli's catch coming towards their way.
Yeah.
If Virat Kohli's catch was taken then and there, India probably would have scored, one third at least less than what they ended up scoring. Because it was Kohli who, throughout everyone else, maybe even there were patches where even KL Rahul has struggled on that pitch. It was just Kohli and his superhuman batting that got India to 212.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you realize if Kohli's wicket was gone straight away, then India would have been on the back foot, and that's probably where they lost the game as well. Right after that catch was taken, you saw the camera once again panning over Afghanistani players. Mohammad Nabi was distraught. I don't remember who the fielder was, but I think he was very much. I think it just written on their faces that they lost the game then and there. But I will point out one thing, and that's what Sandipani also said, right? They were 26 for 6, if I'm not wrong, after the power play, and the way they came back for the next 5 to 4 wickets, and they made sure they fended off Indian attack till the 20th over, and they batted throughout. That is commendable, and that shows that this was just a break. This was just that mental fatigue, that physical fatigue of playing two consecutive most difficult matches in the Asia Cup.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably why. But yeah, you're right. This is the pitch. This was the most truest pitch that Afghanistan has played with. Even when they played in Dubai last time, there was a bit of movement available for the
Yeah.
Afghanistani players, for the fast bowlers and for the spinners, and that's the reason why they were able to take down Sri Lanka. But today we saw that the pitch was a lot more flat, a lot more true, and the moment Afghanistani players, they couldn't. The spinners and the fast bowlers, especially the fast bowlers, could not counter Indian batting, especially someone like Virat Kohli. And then when it
Yeah.
came to their batting, they could not, stand against someone like Bhuvneshwar Kumar. Obviously, he played someone Bhuvneshwar Kumar, the way he bowled. You don't expect to see that in on that pitch. I don't think anyone expected Bhuvneshwar Kumar to swing the ball the way he did. But these are things that you'll face in international cricket, especially in the first few overs, even in Australia. Some amount of moment will be available, and I think you'll have Mitchell Stark, Trent Bolt coming in, steaming in, and it's not going to be easy. So this
Yeah.
Afghanistan team, they have a long way to go, but this is a start, and they need to build on it. This is the generation that they need to groom, and they need to make sure that they play more outside Asia, which is a process, and this is a process that will go longer. But the way they have played in this tournament, the way they have shown up, many of those Asian giants, I think they've been giant killers in this
Yeah.
tournament, and all three, I think Bangladesh, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka have faced their wrath. You can argue that India probably is the only team which played well against them. And this shows that this Afghanistan team has got the fight in them, got the mentality in them. And I hope they groom these youngsters, and it becomes a generation. It doesn't become a generational thing, but it becomes a starting point for this Afghanistan team.
Absolutely. क्यों डरे जिंदगी में क्या होगा? I'm not gonna go say anything. It's very tough for me to actually pick it up. But yeah, you mentioned the mental fatigue factor. Let's talk about mental fatigue. One person who today stands there and speaks high volumes of mental fatigue, and he advocates mental fatigue being a real thing, is Virat Kohli, right? Sanjay, here on the show, we spoke about how important that break of Virat Kohli was gonna be when he decided to take the break after that English one-day series. But today we are here to talk about how important that break has been. It was all about him leaving cricket for the 30 days period of time. We knew a lot was going on his head for the last 6-7 months. Nothing was going right for them, especially when he was told when he left the captaincy, when he was told to leave the one day captaincy, he had to leave the T20 captaincy, and a lot more workload as well as a batter. If you look at any player in the world, he had played more cricket in the last one decade more than any other player as well. So Sanjay, coming to you, how important is mental fatigue? Because we had an episode completely on a mental fatigue as well here on Boomerland, where we discussed how players are going to be feeling it, how players like Ben Stokes are taking such decisions as well. Now, today it proves mental fatigue is a real thing. We need to take break at times, stay away from what you're doing, just relax, put things into perspective, and come back again. And that's what has done Virat Kohli a world of good. It's not about technique. It's not about whatever we talk from outside. It's all about just him coming into the groove, just him clearing the mind, isn't it?
I think it's not it's not been proved tonight itself. I think it has been proved since a long time that mental fatigue is a real thing, and obviously if you if you are not in the right mind space to get out there
Yeah.
and score some runs or take some wickets, if you are not fully involved in the game, obviously your performances will hinder. And as Kohli mentioned about his mental fatigue, he said that he was not feeling 100% into the game when he was playing. He was sort of faking his energy
Yeah.
sometimes, and that is not something you want to see in a class player like Kohli. But again, like the Indian team, and obviously we as spectators too expect somebody like a Kohli after a rough patch to continue playing and get some runs, and just get going. But I think it is he who, like, it is a player who will understand his game the best. I mean, he will know when he's not feeling it. He will know when he's sort of in the right mindset, and in the right form to get things done. And I think that is where you have to draw the line. I mean, it all depends on players. And I think Virat Kohli this time around, the mental fatigue thing really worked. Like the break really worked. 30 days, not touching the bat, coming in. I mean, it could have gone either way as well. I mean, another one. If Kohli would have gotten out for another duck tonight, there would have been lots of criticism regarding him as well, because two consecutive ducks, even though he scored that 59 and 60, people tend to sort of forget what people are doing over the 1.5 years consistently. They rather focus on the recent events, and
Yeah.
that is something that is a bit sort of a real downer for me when it comes to the Indian fans, especially. Not just Indian fans in general. I mean, they just look at the recent and the latest result and just go after it. I mean, I can point out so many people tonight who are coming out there and saying Virat Kohli, what a champ, scoring a century.
Yeah,
They were
yeah.
the ones
I
criticizing him
remember,
the
I'm not gonna
most for
take this
scoring that
person's
duck
name.
yesterday.
In Star Sports, there was this commentator, especially in Hindi commentary, who actually tweeted, "Nobody comes back in form by taking a break." And today he had come out saying that, "Oh, taking a break is so important in cricket." So, if you know who I'm talking about, you already might have guessed it. So it's, the double standards do come in. Today, everyone's a fan of Virat Kohli. I remember some of our legends as well, some of the World Cup winning former captains, some of the greatest batters of of previous generations who came out and told that Virat Kohli is done in T20 cricket because he's not got the reflex. He cannot sustain the strike rate and the modern day game demands. But there's this thing about Virat Kohli, right? You have seen that in Virat Kohli's prime. If you give Virat Kohli that time, if he bats there in the middle for 10 overs to 12 overs, he can take the game to another paradigm. And he always has done that. It's not a joke at all at this very point, because if I have to be very honest, if I have to be very honest with you people, this is the moment, right? This is the moment for Virat Kohli to really take this game. I know now there with two bilateral series in Australia and South Africa, and with the World Cup ahead, in T20 World Cups, Virat Kohli has been always a bankable player. Two man of the tournaments in two T20 World Cups. So you know how important is Virat Kohli for his team India. Jen, coming to you, as we already discussed about it, let's address the big question in the room. Should Virat Kohli open the batting for the T20 World Cup for India? We've been advocating that for the longest period of time. You remember the first podcast we did in 2021, when after that English series, we did advocate this, that Virat Kohli and Rohit Sharma should be opening the batting in UAE last year. That did not come true. But here we are going to start the debate once again, because it makes a lot of sense for Virat Kohli and Rohit Sharma to open the batting, and it also gives Indian team a lot more balance. With Rishabh Pant can bat. Rishabh Pant also can play in the 11. He can bat either number 3, number 4. Then also you can include something like Dinesh Karthik. A lot of balance issues goes out of the picture when Virat Kohli opens the batting, and that is going to be a major factor for India going ahead, right?
Yeah, Virat Kohli, we need Virat Kohli to open the batting. It's as simple as that. 2016, one of the best years of Virat Kohli in the IPL, he opened the batting. And then again, when we saw him open the batting with Rohit Sharma in Ahmedabad, he played an amazing inning, and India got off to a flyer. So these two batsmen, and the best part about Virat and Rohit is they complement each other really well. They're very good running off the wicket, so you'll never see a dot ball in there somewhere. They're very good. They'll make sure that the scoreboard keeps ticking. Even if they're struggling to hit those boundaries, they will still somehow find ways to score runs by taking singles, doubles. And that's one of the things that you love about Virat Kohli, right? It's just high octane energy that he brings in.
Yeah.
He's someone who carried his bat throughout the innings today, and he did not look to reduce in intensity at all. In fact, his intensity was increasing ball by ball. And Virat Kohli is, I mean, a strike rate is 161 as an opener, if I'm not wrong, and there are around
Yeah.
400 runs that he scored in 9 innings. This is just T20I. I'm sure if you look at the IPL stats, it'll be even more incredible, because I think one of the comment section says that it's Virat Kohli's Onam gift today to all the Malayalis who are celebrating Onam. Happy Onam to everyone. And yeah, I think coming back to the point, Virat Kohli requires to open, and there's a reason for that as well.
Yeah.
I feel we've always advocated that Kohli, Rahul, and Rohit Sharma, all three of them have similar method when it comes or approach to their innings. Obviously, Rohit is trying to transition into a more of a basher up front, but it'll take its own time, And I feel if these are especially now that because KL Rahul is someone whom you'll see in the future a lot more, and who isn't as effective as Rohit and Virat. I'm unfortunately having to say this. He's gonna have to miss out, and because once he misses out, you suddenly see this balance come into the team. You mentioned Rishabh Pant, right? And Rishabh Pant, it can come in number 4 and bat. But I'll give another name here. You can have Deepak Hooda bat in the opening top order as well. Obviously, you
Mm.
might. I mean, obviously, it's possibility that, I mean, for me at least, Rishabh Pant is my first pick because he's a left-handed batsman. But then he isn't, as smooth, as fluent as we are used to seeing him in T20s. Today as well, he wasn't as fluent. He gave a chance which was again dropped. I think it was Mujibur Rahman who got into an awkward position and he parried it to the boundary ropes.
Yeah,
And you
yeah.
know what? Yeah, I think he did not look in form at all. And at the end of the day, it was just a runner ball, almost a runner ball innings. So I think if he isn't doing well, then you can have someone like a Deepak Huda come up top of the order, at number 4 and play that role that he's been playing for this Indian team for quite some time. And also come and be an off-spinning option towards the end of towards the end or in the middle period as we saw today. So I think this is probably what I feel is the ideal 11. KL Rahul is a great player, but I unfortunately for me he doesn't fit in this balance, in this team balance. And it's not like Indian management has not done this before. We've been doing this to our specialist bowlers for quite some time. So I think it's time that we start advocating or extending this notion to the batsmen as well.
Absolutely, absolutely, totally agree with you on this, Jaren. Because I know at times you have to also give your team's combination into consideration. You have to take that into consideration because you have a T20 World Cup which is a month away, and it's high time you take this particular viable option into consideration. Where Virat Kohli and Rohit Sharma opens the batting for India in T20 internationals, where you can fit in Surya Kumar Yadav at number 3, Rishabh Pant at 4, or Deepak Huda at 4. It opens plethora of options for Team India if you're looking ahead into the World Cup. And also, let's take into consideration Virat Kohli's record in Australia. It's just incredible. He has an average of 67 in Australia. He loves playing in those conditions. The grounds like Adelaide should be named now after Virat Kohli because he totally
I
owns
mean,
there. He totally.
I'm sure there must be some stand coming soon, the Kohli stand.
Yeah, absolutely. I won't be surprised at all. And the love affair which Virat Kohli has got with
Yeah.
Australia. And if you asked Virat Kohli which country would you like to go play the T20 World Cup, you'd have blindly chosen Australia because that's one country where after every failure he has gone on to do well over there because he loves batting over there. He loves the true bounce over there. And this is where there's a big opportunity for Virat Kohli, the batter, as well, to just build on from here on into the T20 World Cup. And it's going to be a massive T20 World Cup. And Virat Kohli's form matters for Team India a lot. Sanimani, talking about the same point as well. How do you see the balance? Do you still support that KL Rahul should be continuing as an opener, or do you see Virat Kohli just slotting into that number 1, number 2 position alongside Surya Kumar Yadav at 3?
Honestly, I feel Virat Kohli as an opener can really add a different dynamic to the Indian team. But having said that, I still feel that he is a good enough player at number 3 as well. And I think KL Rahul and Rohit Sharma are going to be the openers for the T20 World Cup this time around. And definitely Virat Kohli is going to come in at number 3. I think Virat Kohli has some impressive stats opening the innings for Team India. But having said that, at number 3 too, he has some pretty decent stats as well. And I personally feel that both Rohit Sharma and KL Rahul has started to look aggressive early on in the innings. I mean, KL Rahul did not get going in the game against Pakistan, and in the game against Hong Kong too, he looked very slow. And he had a little bit sort of some sort of bad game against Sri Lanka. But the intent with which he has come into bat since that Hong Kong game, after getting two sighters after his injury, I think has been good. I think that intent is okay. I think if both KL Rahul and Rohit Sharma come in looking to score 50, 60 runs in the power play and sort of lay that platform for the later lower order batsmen and somebody like a Virat Kohli to come in the fifth or sixth over mark and build the innings and play that sort of a knock where he'll sort of rotate the strike till 15th over and then go for the attack. And I think
Mm.
today was a template Virat Kohli knock. At the end of 13th, I think at the end of the 13th over, he was somewhere close to 50 in 33 balls. And then the acceleration came. He scored the last 72 runs of just 28 balls. And that was just phenomenal. I think another I still feel that Rishabh Pant played a very good knock. I mean, he was struggling to hit the balls outside the boundary, but he did the right thing
Yeah.
because Virat Kohli
I
was
mean,
going
yeah,
very slow.
he started rotating the strike and giving to Virat
Yeah,
Kohli as well,
he
who
just
was
gave
just
the strike back
striking.
to Kohli, which was a good thing because
Yeah,
they did not have too many dot balls, and Kohli could
yeah.
play his strokes freely. He had no
I mean,
pressure.
yeah,
I mean, most often than not, whenever Kohli has ended up in the 90s not out or in the 80s not out in T20
mm,
internationals, Kohli has a lot of scores over 70 not outs in T20 internationals, especially because he has not got the strike towards the end, or
mm,
has not been able to face enough number of balls to get to that 100 run landmark. Otherwise, I
mm,
think Virat Kohli, this is not the first time. This shouldn't have been Kohli's first T20 international century. I think
yeah. I
this,
mean,
if
ultimately, you'll all be
yeah,
glad that the 71st came through one format which we all did not even expect it to be
definitely.
coming. We all
And
expected
I mean, we
Virat
can now
Kohli
boast
100 will
that
come in
now
Bangladesh.
Sachin Tendulkar with 100 centuries is the highest century scorer all across the world. And at number two, we have another Indian, Virat Kohli, along with
Yeah,
Ricky Ponting, of course. But
yeah.
Kohli
But yeah,
has done it in like sort of more lesser number of innings
lesser number of
than
innings. And
Ponting. Yeah.
Virat Kohli got to 71st, one innings lesser than Sachin Tendulkar as well. Sachin Tendulkar got in 523. Virat Kohli got to it in 522. But that 3 years long break, if Virat Kohli would have had some more centuries, you never know this could have been the
I
90th.
mean, we when Virat Kohli scored that last century against Bangladesh, I think in November
World Cup
2020, November 2019.
19,
I
2019.
mean, yeah,
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
a different
nobody would have
decade,
thought
man.
that we would have to wait an entire pandemic for Virat Kohli just getting to that landmark. But I think since the pandemic is almost over, so is Virat Kohli's century drought. So
Yeah, I mean,
I
it's
expect at
just
least
weird,
another
right?
two or three
Yeah, it is
this year.
weird. It is weird. The world got to us
I mean,
to a
I think I'll
standstill.
add another part to it. And this is the first tournament that Virat Kohli's played where the bio bubble has not existed.
Yeah,
So
I mean
add
that is a
that to the
massive,
fact.
massive point. I mean, yeah, Azil, I'll make a point over there because this is a point which I made last in July with Sandeepani on the show. We were having a talk as to why did Virat Kohli take a break when when he actually needed form back. And a point which I made in that particular show, I remember it was India was an England review what we were doing right after the one day series. And one point which I had to make was for someone like Virat Kohli, it is so important to just take, leave cricket, just go back. Even Michael once suggested it. Just go to a beach or somewhere and just relax, just throw away his kick back for some time and just say that, dude, I'm going to be a human being. I don't have to be so desperate at times. And that's exactly what Virat Kohli did. Ultimately, as he's been talking about it, he left cricket for a month. He not touch his bat. He not think about the game. As he's been talking about, he got things into perspective. I'm pretty excited about Virat Kohli's autobiography, man. I think there's going to be some big bombs which are going to drop there. For some reason, I don't know. I'm already excited for it. If there's a pre-order
I
available.
mean, it's
I'm
Virat.
booking
I
it right
think
now.
it's Virat. He's been dropping bombs in the press conferences. So I think a book definitely is going to be full of a lot of these facts,
Yeah,
a
Yeah,
lot of
that's
that,
going to
that's
interesting
the
become one
journalist
hell of a book.
part of Abel, trying to get all those gossips out of the
And
Indian
who
team.
knows, maybe it'll be Virat Kohli co-authored by Abel.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. I love it. I love it. Here in Australia at midnight, there was a huge roar, and that is it. It was King's second coming. Oh wow, well put. Yeah, absolutely. The world is. I mean, I see people across the world being happy about this, especially across the border as well. That's the kind of connect which Virat Kohli brings between two nations, right? I mean, there's this funny meme which is going on that Babar Azam passes form to Virat Kohli and Virat Kohli passes on to him, but we would never mind that. I mean, Virat Kohli would never mind that. But it's been very cute gesture from all across as well. You saw when Virat Kohli was down, Babar Azam coming out openly and supporting him. I've never seen that from his own teammates, but they might be doing it, but on closed doors, and that's what we don't have to dwell much into. But of course, when it comes to supporting across the borders, Babar Azam has been an absolute sport. We also wish that he scores runs in leading into the Asia Cup. That's why you
And I
want two
think
kings to be
Virat
dominating.
Kohli at the end of this Asia Cup has scored, I think, 276 runs, and I think he has just overtaken Mohammad Rizwan to be the
Yeah.
highest run scorer in this Asia
Yeah,
Cup
yeah. Virat
with an
Kohli scored
average of
200,
92 and an impressive
276
strike
runs.
rate as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
276 odd runs this Asia Cup. At the start of the Asia Cup, everyone were questioning, will Virat Kohli really be on the flight to Australia? Should Virat Kohli be dropped off the team? I mean, that's it, guys. I mean, I don't have to talk anything more.
Yeah, I mean, you
Ends up
expect your
in
number three to score runs, and I think 35, 59 not out, 60 a duck, and finally a 122 not out is something that the Indian team right now will take
yeah,
with both hands. I mean, and I think even though KL Rahul has come after an injury and his strike rate has been spot of concern early on, but I think he has done a pretty good job in this Asia Cup as well. Even though the two very good knocks that he played were against Hong Kong, and no, I mean the knock against Hong Kong, he took a lot of balls. I think he had a very good knock against Afghanistan, but you have to realize that this Afghanistan bowling lineup was not a pushover, and then you have to understand that yesterday Pakistan struggled to score
Yeah,
130
absolutely.
against the same bowling lineup.
I
Yeah,
mean,
there is
I'll also
obviously
add on to this,
some sort of
Sandeep, I
fatigue.
think this Afghanistan bowling lineup is even better than Sri Lanka. I know that Sri Lanka are in
Yeah,
the
yeah,
finals of
definitely.
the
I
Asia
mean,
Cup.
Sri Lankan bowling lineup. That is why I was so
Absolutely, yeah.
distraught in that game against India versus Sri Lanka, because
Yeah, absolutely.
if you lose to Pakistan with this form, I mean, it's okay. You don't have the combination, and Pakistan have a very strong side. But if you lose to Sri Lanka with a bowling lineup that has somebody like a Dilshan Madhushanka, Chamika Karunaratne, and Asita Fernando as their three main
Yeah.
pacers, I mean that is very concerning for a team
I would
of
have loved
India's
it if this
caliber.
100 had come a match earlier against Sri Lanka, and we would have been much happier to talk about it also.
Definitely,
Unfortunate.
definitely.
Unfortunate, but now it's very good signs. It's ominous and very good signs for India because leading into the World Cup, you have your premier batsman back into the form, and this is going to be India's biggest positive. Jen, I want to ask you: will Virat Kohli's form be India's biggest positive from the Asia Cup? Though they're out of it at this point, Virat Kohli's form, what they desperately wanted, team management kept backing him through all the lows which he had. Team management kept that belief that he is still our premier batter because when it matters the most, he's going to deliver, and he did deliver in a multinational tournament like this. And now leading into the World Cup where he actually owns the stage, a T20 World Cup, and Virat Kohli, you all know the love affair between that. He's definitely going to be pumping himself, isn't it?
Yeah, I think to be very fair, this is the only bright light for India. I mean, I think maybe other than this, the only thing I would probably say is that Jadeja's contribution with the bat in the first match of Asia Cup is the probably only two positives that India will take away from the Asia Cup. I think that itself speaks right how bad this tournament have been for India. I think the 71st century is making sure is hiding a lot of India's flaws today. One might even argue that India. I mean, if many people are looking at this match and thinking, okay, India is back, I think please don't do that because this is a jaded Afghanistani team at the end of the day. Kudos to Virat Kohli, of course, and I know for a fact that
I
this
mean,
100 is
for a
something
matter
that
of fact, this 71st century from Virat Kohli overshadowed Bhuvneshwar Kumar's performance.
correct.
I mean, nobody's talking about
Absolutely,
Bhuvneshwar
absolutely.
Kumar.
I'll also put this thing into perspective today because, especially when we talk about Bhuvneshwar Kumar, we all wanted him to bowl 3 overs up front, and Bhuvneshwar Kumar
Yeah.
at his best would love to bowl 3 overs up front with having an extra or a full time ball like a Deepak Chahar, or in the World Cup you will have Bumrah or an Arshdeep to back him, and that's when Bhuvneshwar Kumar also will feel comfortable, and that's the best way to use Bhuvneshwar Kumar, right? I
Yeah, I
know
think
his death bowling is still good, but he's not at his best bowling at the dead. If you want to use Bhuvneshwar Kumar, it should be up front, him picking up wickets. And today's bowling or today's way in which they use Bhuvneshwar Kumar is the ideal way to use him in the World Cup as well, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I'll take it up as well. I think for me, Bhuvneshwar Kumar probably what Indian team will probably look to do is, and what they should is, give him 3 overs up front in the power play, and then once the power play is done, maybe give him that 1 over, maybe in the 16th or the 15th over. Maybe just bring him back. See, I mean, if you can pick up a wicket and just end a spell right there. And I think that's something that Bhuvneshwar Kumar is fit to do as well. With the new ball, he's very dangerous, and in Australia we've seen that he's done the damage as well with the new ball. So it's not like he has struggled even in Australia, place where ball doesn't move as much as what we saw today, and it's not going to do as much. But he still has got that nippy chin and nippy movement. That, for example, what he does to Aaron Finch every time they face off. That shows that he's very dangerous with new ball, and then that'll help India to get those early wickets in the power play. And if you define his role in that fashion, especially with Bumrah coming back, I think you give Bumrah probably 2 overs and Arshdeep that 1 over in the power play. Or if Harshal Patel is playing, then Harshal Patel is probably the sixth over in the power play, and then just see how things go from there. So I think that's probably what India will look to do. So this is probably one good thing that also has come out of this match. Right now we know what Bhuvneshwar Kumar is capable of with the new ball, and we probably have a role defined. I really hope that the Indian team doesn't go back to what his role was in the past few matches. I have nothing against Bhuvneshwar Kumar as a death bowler. He's an incredible death bowler, but I feel in the international cricket, in T20 cricket, he still needs a lot more. I would say because I've seen him lose a lot of shape, or I've seen him make some terrible decisions in the death, and that's what he did against Sri Lanka. I think that's probably what to keep him away from those crucial overs, the 20th and 19th over.
Absolutely. Jen, I would like you to rejoin again because I think you're facing some sort
Yeah,
of a
yeah, yeah, I
connection
will, I will.
issues. So meanwhile,
Correct,
you
yeah.
can rejoin. And yeah, I'll take some questions right now. Let's talk about it. Virat Kohli made my day. Absolutely. Virat Kohli made all of our days. Something I want to talking to you about Virat Kohli and also Bhuvaneshwar Kumar. How vital is it going to be for Bhuvaneshwar Kumar from here on to just stick to his basics, not to try anything different, just ball those good outswingers outside the off stump or bring the ball in, set the batsman up. So as team management, you also want to define his role pretty clear, right? From here on,
I
leading
think
into the
this is
World
his
Cup.
role. Just bowl 3 overs
I
up
mean,
front and one over
the
in the middle
reason
over.
being until now Bhuvaneshwar Kumar was used as a death bowler as well most of the time. But now here, leading into the World Cup, you want him to be that bowler who comes up front, picks your wickets, and also finishes off his quota of 4 overs, maybe even 3 overs in the power play, and then ball one in the middle overs. If at all needed be, he can ball one in the death. But the role
Yeah.
clarity for Bhuvaneshwar Kumar
But
is
I
going to be so
think,
vital
but
leading
I
into the
think
World
with
Cup.
if Jasprit Bumrah and Harshal Patel are fit before the World Cup, and if both of them manage to play, I mean, if India opt to go with four seamers along with a spinner in the form of somebody like Akshar Patel or Ravindra Jadeja if he's fit. Which is very unlikely. So if India goes with some with a combination of Akshar Patel and Harshal Patel, Arshdeep Singh, Jasprit Bumrah, and Bhuvneshwar Kumar, or even if you don't have the option of either Harshal Patel or Arshdeep Singh, so even if they go with three pacers, I think Jasprit Bumrah along with either Arshdeep or Harshal Patel is a good enough bowler at the death. And I think at this point, Arshdeep Singh has some great abilities to ball that Yorker, and he does that consistently. That is his go-to ball. So you have to realize that yeah, we already have two players in the form of Bumrah and Arshdeep Singh to give you at least 4 overs in the death. And okay, there might, like, either of the two may have an off day, so that time you can use 1 over of Bhuvneshwar Kumar at the death. Other than that, I don't see any reason why you should not have Bhuvneshwar Kumar completing his quota of 4 overs within the first 14 or 15 overs itself. But and also not to forget, you also have the additional option of some bowling somebody like a Hardik Pandya. Uh, I mean, Hardik Pandya basically relies on more of his variations, like the short pitch deliveries and the variations in pace to deceive the batsman. But yeah, on his day he can just get you 1 over in the death overs as well. So I definitely feel that Bhuvneshwar Kumar is not really needed in the death overs for Team India right now with the team combination and squad that they have. So I think you should utilize him when he's at his best. That is at the power play and probably in the middle overs. Because after that, and I think this performance from Bhuvneshwar Kumar was very important. The role clarity was very important because KL Rahul bowled him straight for 4 overs. Like he bowled the first. That is what you like expect him to do in most of the circumstances. Under most circumstances, because otherwise that this is what Dhoni asked him to do. This is what Dhoni asked somebody like a Deepak Chahar to do. Your
Yeah, yeah,
opening bowler
yeah.
should your opening bowler should come in. If he's bowling well, complete his quota of 4 overs. Don't keep him till the end when probably he might lose rhythm. He might go for plenty of runs. That is why we see that sometimes a bowler has an opening spell of just 7 runs, 8 runs in his first 2 or 3 overs, but comes in the death overs and the figures are completely spoiled because he has lost that rhythm. You have to again regain that rhythm, which is not easy to
True.
get
I
it
mean,
straight away.
it's a valid point over there because if you look at bowlers and the role clarity, it's so important. As you talk about batters, them being having a clear picture as to where they should be batting. For bowlers as well, you should clarify the mind and you should have a clear role clarity as to where you will be bowling, especially when it comes to opening bowlers. Someone like a Bhuvaneshwar Kumar, someone like a Deepak Chahar, they have their job cut out to ball first 3 overs in the power play and maybe ball one in the middle or ball one in the death if the situation demands so. And for Bhuvaneshwar Kumar, it's going to be so important to make the best out of him. If you want to use the best of Bhuvaneshwar Kumar, it should be up front because he can swing the ball, and especially in Australian conditions. And this time around, let's not also forget this is going to be early summer for Australia. It's unlike other time where we travel to Australia in December, where it's peak summers. This time around, it's going to be in the early part of summers. Just getting into summers, the conditions are going to be much colder. Conditions are going to be slightly on the windy side as well. And I believe Bhuvneshwar Kumar is going to come in here. And you saw in today's game as well. If you guys watch Australia take on New Zealand today, you saw how pace bowling was coming into effect and how pacers were using the conditions pretty well as well. So this is where I believe someone like Bhuvneshwar Kumar, like you saw with Trent Bolt, like you're saying with Mitchell Stark, will be able to shape the ball pretty much very well in Australian conditions. And if Bhuvneshwar Kumar can come back pretty well, and there's going to be nothing like that. And it's going to be so important for India to use him pretty well in those conditions as well. Jaren, talking to you about that, we have an interesting question over here, which I read right now. I have a question here. Here, please state. Don't you think Rahul Dravid has had this issue of overcomplicating selection? Him as RRDC
Yeah.
coach, also him trying out everyone in the team like under 19. Wait, he has got it. Will that theory, will that theory of trying everyone out in international cricket? I think he wants to ask the question as
Yeah, I
to,
think what his question
I,
is the chopping and
yeah,
changing that Rahul
chopping and
Dravid is
changing.
doing.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and he came out stating that Rahul Dravid told that I'll give everybody in my team a chance whenever I'm the coach of the team. And that's not a good theory to have in international cricket. And let me be very honest, tactically speaking, Rahul Dravid has got a lot of flaws. I've seen that with Rahul Dravid in Rajasthan Royals in 2014. If you remember the season where Rajasthan Royals were cruising pretty much, and they had to play that all-important match against Mumbai where they lost in a 13 overs, where Faulkner ball. And let's also talk. I think in 2015 they made it to the qualifiers, but still they had a huge drop down. They won 5 in a row, and they had this huge slump. So Rahul Dravid has got this record of making some terrible decisions. And also with Delhi in 2017, 2016, they got off to good starts, and then they make some big changes. They change the 11 around in order to give everyone a chance. But then it just slumps very bad. And also in under 19 India, it might work because all kids, you should give all the kids a chance. But in international cricket, it certainly does not work, isn't it? Jen, your take on that? Because it's a serious issue right now, and it's a very good question, lovely question from Shaurya.
Yeah, I think he's absolutely spot on. And the reason I say that is because Indian team has done really well when we've seen a clarity of roles and we've seen positions being secured in the team. When there's not much of chopping and changing. And the reason I say that is because when you go back to the golden years of Indian cricket team in ICC tournaments, when India was winning every ICC tournament, we saw what Dhoni did, right?
You're
Am I
making
still
me
feeling
feel like
this?
a 50-year-old man.
I didn't get you. What?
You're making me feel like a 50-year-old man already, stating golden years of Indian cricket team in ICC tournament.
Yeah,
Nonetheless,
I mean,
get
what I mean
going.
to say is, what I mean to say is the fact that India was dominating those ICC tournaments back then, and we didn't even
Yeah,
have as near, as many amount of players that we have today. The well-rounded individuals we have today. And the reason why I think that team under Dhoni did really well is because there was role clarity, right? Everyone knew what their role was supposed to be, and everyone knew that even if they failed 1 or 2 matches, if they were able to put in those efforts, or at least the management felt that this particular player had it in him, then he wouldn't lose his spot, or he would be playing almost every match. And I know Indian team is playing a lot more matches, and there's a lot more burden on the Indian internationals today than maybe in 2011 or 2010 or so. But the fact that theory works, right? The theory is working for Chennai even now when Dhoni is off international captaincy, is not an international player
mm,
anymore. It's still working.
mm,
And most often you see teams which have, cricket is not the sport you see, for example, in football, right? There isn't as much
yeah,
fatigue as there is in football or any other sport for that matter in cricket. And cricket is one of those unique team sports where individuals who play longer are able to do a lot better. And I think that's something that this Indian team, at least, 1 year heading up to these ICC tournaments. And I mean, now that there's not much gap between ICC tournaments, probably six
yeah,
months heading up to an ICC tournament, Indian team should know at least the top 22 players. And I think that's something that this Indian team is lacking. Even today, we saw so much of chopping and changing. I think today, obviously, you can argue that there's a lot of experiment going on. But, I feel by now, Indian team should have had their top 22, and I feel they don't.
yeah.
They're still struggling. They're still trying to find out a lot of reason for that. The reason for that is this theory that Rahul Dravid is trying to imply. So I think Shaurya has got it absolutely right. This Indian team, at least heading up to ICC tournaments, a big tournament, should not do so much chopping and changing.
True, absolutely. And also one other thing which has been very concerning for Team India is the number of captains we've had in the last 1 year. I know it's tough for a coach to work with multiple captains. There is no clear philosophy, but if you always have noticed, some of the best combinations come in packages. Gary Kirsten Dhoni, Stephen Fleming Dhoni, Virat Kohli Shastri. You all know when captain and coach are in sync, when they tend to work together for a longer period of time, you see the results also coming together. Sanjay Mani, my question on the similar lanes is we've had an entire podcast on how Rahul Dravid's test coaching is really coming to scrutiny because there have been a lot of tactical errors which he has made in test format. But now let's talk about white ball format as well, because there's a lot of history as to how he has failed as a white ball coach in a high intensity situation. Let's not talk about under 19 World Cup. Under 19 World Cup is a totally different kind of a gravy
I mean,
altogether.
when you talk about the Under 19 World Cup, you have to understand that the Indian team was far superior than any
Yeah,
other team
yeah,
that year.
and look at
So
the
the
talent.
quality
Look
of
at
the
the
players, I
talent.
mean, they had Shubman Gill, Prithvi
Absolutely.
Shaw. Yeah.
Yeah. And these lads did play in the Indian domestic cricket before even they made their India under 19 debut. So they were
And they were
out there
scoring
playing in the
centuries
senior
in
match.
domestic cricket as well,
Yeah,
scoring centuries of like against
absolutely.
international. Yeah.
And some of them
So
also
I
already
think
got
that is a
IPL
very
contracts as well.
not the right like comparison. Rahul Dravid was like coaching an under 19 team which were the strong favorites, not just strong favorites. They were clearly dominant. Their backup players were good enough to play
Yeah,
the
I mean,
games
I
and
think
win it for them.
you're right, Saliman. If you look at how many players have already transitioned from that team to international
Yeah,
cricket,
I
compare
mean,
them to other
almost the entire
nations.
team has
Yeah,
transitioned
Yeah,
apart from a
true,
couple of injuries.
true. You today you saw
So
Prithvi
I
Shaw go
definitely
out there and
feel that
score a
Rahul Dravid trying that
fast
in the
century
under
as well.
19 field or in the domestic field, it is different. But when he comes into the Indian side, he has to understand that the quality of the players or the quality of the oppositions that he is facing, he has to respect that. And I
Yeah,
feel that I said that the team has to click as a team, and even today the team did not really click as a team. They had a very good opening stand, but that was just about it. If Kohli would have gotten out at that stage, I am sure India wouldn't have been able to go past 200. I mean,
mm,
it was another Kohli. It was just the special abilities of Kohli and with the ball, the special abilities of Bhuvneshwar Kumar that won India the game. But it was
absolutely.
not that the entire team clicked, because if it would have been so, we could have seen uh, somebody like a Surya Kumar Yadav performing. Like, it would have been good to see other players. I mean, I read one of the comments where it was mentioned that Dinesh Karthik has bowled more balls than he has played in this Asia Cup. He
Yeah,
played in
true.
4 games, but the game matches he played against were Hong Kong, Afghanistan, and he did not get to bat. And I mean, if you have to try somebody like a Dinesh Karthik to compare whether Dinesh Karthik or
Isn't this
Rishabh
Dinesh
Pant,
Karthik's second game of the tournament, if I'm not wrong?
no, this is his third game. I think he played against Hong Kong. He played
No, he's
against
not playing against
Pakistan
Hong
in the
Kong.
first.
Or did he play against Hong Kong?
He played against Hong Kong. Against Hong Kong, there was Rishabh
Yeah,
Pant and
he
Dinesh
did.
Karthik.
Yeah, he did.
So
He did.
this
He
is
did.
his
His
third
third
game.
game. Third
Yeah.
game, correct.
So I definitely feel that chopping and changing a player without giving him any chance. I mean, why did you select him in the first place if you did not have to? And yeah, today again bowling opposition was the opposition was not really up to the mark. But again, India lost their second wicket at the 12th or 13th over mark. Why not giving somebody like a Deepak Huda a chance to come in at number 4 and do some justice to the role, like define, like at least take a claim to his position. And I think this has not helped India. Tonight's game has not helped Indian selectors in any way
yeah.
to select the team for the World Cup, because they have to select the team for the World Cup before India plays the series against South Africa or Australia. They have to have a selected 15 before they play the next game. So this was their last chance to try out players, having known that the outcome was inconsequential. I think they managed to do it with the ball. I think they really knew that Arshdeep Singh was up the pecking order, so they just bowled him for 2 overs. Bhuvneshwar Kumar was
Mm.
on a song, so he got his 4 overs. Akshar Patel was economical as ever, and I think Ashwin had another good game, 4 overs, and I think Deepak Huda came in and picked up a wicket in the 1 over that he bowled, which furthermore will like prompt me to criticize Rohit Sharma's captaincy. Why didn't you try
Yeah,
him out? He's a bowler. You
yeah.
could have tried him out in the game against Sri Lanka. You could have tried him out in the
Mm.
game against Pakistan
Now,
at
if you look in
crucial
hindsight, there are a
situations.
lot of things India should have tried out. I know today's Virat Kohli's success, as even we have Shafiqullah talk about it, it shouldn't really overshadow the very fact that there are still a lot of holes to be covered in Team India. And today, the holes weren't really exposed because there were brilliance from two individuals who can actually win matches of their own. Virat Kohli is an individual match winner. Bhuvneshwar Kumar is an individual match winner. So when these two stepped up, it actually covered all the holes over there. It kind of cemented it, but not yet. It's still, I think, it's cemented in a way in which how you have Indian roads to be. It can anytime the portholes can just come up if you have a bad rainy day. So that's how I personally feel. And can a good coach
I
who's
mean,
good
just
in
to
terms
add
of
on it, I
drafting,
mean,
yeah,
who are India's middle order and who is India's pace department going to consist of? We still
absolutely.
have no clue.
There's no answer
There are
to it.
five,
I
six fast
I'm
bowlers in
pretty
the
sure.
contention. There
Yeah.
are four
And
spinners
today,
in the
why didn't he play
contention.
Yuzi Chahal? I didn't understand that. UZCL wanted more and more games to be back in the group. You saw he couldn't perform well in the first 3 games because UZCL is a bowler who thrives with every over or with every spell he balls, he gets better and better. That's the thing with leg spinners. That's historically
I
been the
think
thing with leg
Yuzvendra
spinners.
Chahal will
And
also
today
not be
you
And
happy
drop
with
him,
the
I
fact
think
that
if
you drop
Bhuvneshwar
him
Chennai
leg
Kumar.
played
spinners.
today, this match would have been over a lot quicker as well. Because I
And
felt
he
India
should
didn't have
have
a
played
wicket
today
taker
just because they could have
with the
overs
ball.
under the belt.
I felt it
Absolutely.
did.
So you are saying
Yeah.
now Ashwin is your number one spinner? Or are you saying Ujjwal Chahal is your number one spinner? There's no clarity on that. Number
And the
two,
best part is, I think the
who
players who played today, both
I mean,
Ashwin
if
and Pakistan,
Ashwin
might
is
not get
is
a
in
match
the
in the
contention for the
T20
race,
World Cup.
why not play him in the important games against Pakistan, the important games in the group stages to see how he is going? Ashwin was
absolutely.
used just in the game against Sri Lanka and in the game against
And and you know what I did
Afghanistan.
not like when Yuji Chahal got back into form, you drop him for no reason whatsoever. It's like saying to Virat Kohli, you will not play now the Australian series because we know now you're back in form. No, now
Yeah,
that does not make
correct.
any sense to me. That now that does not make
I
any
mean, you
sense.
can
Yuji
rest
Chahal
a
is a
player
bowler who
on one of the games. I think resting Rohit Sharma tonight was a smart decision. Okay, he
was
has
a
played all
smart
the
move.
games.
Yes,
Yeah,
totally agree to it.
but
Totally agree to that.
definitely a player who is trying to get back into form with some runs or with some wickets, this is not the way to go about it.
Yeah,
At
Lester
least,
Hardik Pandey
yeah.
also was a very fair call because you don't want to exaggerate him in a dead rubber. Very fair call because you need him.
And
You need
honestly,
him
And
I
I
to
did
think
not
he's
play.
been bowling
understand why
eight
did they play
overs.
Deepak Chahar
He's been
today.
bowling eight
I
overs in
mean,
2 matches, so fair enough to drop him or rest him.
yeah, Hardik Pandya is okay because you see, the India's main combination or the main balance in the team relies on their middle order all rounders. Hardik Pandya and Ravindra Jadeja are one of the key components in balancing that team. So I think Hardik Pandya is a given that he is going to play, and you have to keep him fit so that he manages to bowl those 3 or 4 overs for you. Given that Jadeja is probably not going to make it till the make it for the T20 World Cup, so resting Pandya makes sense. But playing Deepak Chahar today does not make sense. You already have 5 fast bowlers in the race for the World Cup, and you are adding a sixth bowling option for no reason when you could have played
Yeah,
somebody like a Yuzvendra Chahal to give him confidence, like give him confidence in that place. And Deepak Chahar just playing today's game, and even if he plays the game against South Africa or Australia, you just don't know. I mean, what does
I
it
think
tell
for
us
me,
about
Sanjwani,
Avish Khan's situation
I
right
think
now?
they tried Deepak Chahar as a possible replacement for Avesh Khan. I have a feeling that's
But
probably what
Avish
is
मेरी
Khan
बात
happening.
से
in
सुनो आप
itself
लोग
is a possible replacement
संजीवनी
for
हिंदी
somebody
में
like
भी
a
बोल
Bumrah.
दीजिए ठीक है अब बहुत लोग हिंदी में भी सुनना चाहते हैं तो हिंदी में बात
अच्छा,
करते
नहीं,
हैं
नहीं,
इसके
मैं
बारे में
हिंदी में ये बोल मतलब मेरा ये क्लैरिटी मतलब मैं ये क्लियर करना चाहता हूँ कि नहीं, दीपक चाहर को ये लोग खिला रहे हैं। आज इन लोगों ने खिलाया अवेश खान के जगह पे, तो अवेश ये लोग शायद इनको अवेश खान का रिप्लेसमेंट मानना चाहते हैं। पर अवेश खान खुद इस टीम में एक रिप्लेसमेंट है। अवेश
हाँ
खान
जी
बुमराह का रिप्लेसमेंट है। अवेश खान खुद रिप्लेसमेंट है। उसका रिप्लेसमेंट
Hmm.
आप लोग ढूँढ रहे हो, जबकि आपके पास
नहीं अवेश खान को
ये
क्या हुआ कि अवेश खान का तबीयत ठीक नहीं था उसी वजह से अवेश खान को टीम से हटाया दिया इस
या
मैच
दैट
के
इज
लिए
कंप्लीटली
और
फेयर।
मैंने
तुम
भी यही
उनको
कहा
टीम पे
आवेश
ड्राफ्ट
खान
किया,
का
ठीक है,
तबीयत
बट
ठीक नहीं
खिलाने
था
का
तो
कोई जरूरत नहीं
पाकिस्तान
था
वाले
ना।
मैच में क्यों नहीं लेके आया पाकिस्तान वाले मैच में बिश्नोई को लेके आया वो सही बात था पर पिछले 2 गेम हम हारे क्योंकि हमारे पास थर्ड पेसर नहीं थे और आज के मैच तो दो जो रेड डेड रबर था उसमें आप जो लेके आए दीपक चहर को पाकिस्तान वाला मैच भी खिलाना चाहिए था श्रीलंका
और
वाला मैच भी खिलाना
ये
चाहिए था
ऐसे सिलेक्शन प्लेयर के दिमाग में बहुत असर करता है, क्योंकि उन लोगों को पता नहीं होता कि टीम को मेरे में कॉन्फिडेंस है, मेरे को अगला गेम
हाँ
खेलने को मिलेगा, एक गेम में ड्रॉप।
Correct.
अभी दीपक चाहर क्या सोच रहा होगा? उसने 4 ओवर पे 24-25 रन दिया है, विकेट नहीं लिया है, तो वो अभी सोच रहा होगा कि अगेन अ बैड डे,
मैं
नॉट अ
नहीं
वेरी बैड डे,
खेलूंगा।
आई वाज वेरी इकोनॉमिकल, लेकिन मेरे को फिर से अगला गेम खेलने को नहीं मिलेगा।
अरे
ये
मेरे
तो
को लगता भी नहीं है कि दीपक चहर वो 15 में होंगे जो वर्ल्ड कप के लिए जाएगा
नहीं, नहीं,
या
नहीं, डेफिनेटली नहीं होंगे,
भुवनेश्वर
वो
कुमार
एक
का
एडिशनल सब्स्टिट्यूट
खुदा ना
होंगे।
खासा भुवनेश्वर कुमार का इंजरी ना हो जाए भुवनेश्वर कुमार का लाइक टू लाइक रिप्लेसमेंट तो दीपक चहर ही है अभी और दीपक चहर का पास यही क्षमता है कि वो बैट भी कर सकता है मतलब अच्छी तरीके से बैट
हाँ,
कर सकता है नंबर 7 नंबर 8 आके तो यही क्षमता
Hmm.
है दीपक चहर के पास पर अभी आप जो देखेगा तो दीपक चहर मेरे को लगता नहीं है कि वो 11 में होंगे जो इंडिया पाकिस्तान के खिलाफ खेलेगा 23 अक्टूबर को अभी आगे बढ़ते हैं इशफाक ने एक अच्छे क्वेश्चन पूछा यहाँ पर इशफाक ने पूछा कि कैन अ गुड कोच who's good in teaching grassroots level be a good man manager and a good tactician Rahul Dravid's era as a captain saw the highest controversy a very valid point which has been risen by
Yeah.
Ishfaq said I know we all are great fans of Rahul Dravid
and I
but
think we have
let's
had
unravel
a complete podcast regarding this, a complete live regarding just this topic, just this question.
yes can a good coach be a good man manager? It's a very valid point. In my opinion, a good coach who's good in grassroots can never be a good man manager. It's a different skill altogether. If I have to talk about Gary Kirsten was a fantastic man manager. Stephen Fleming is a fantastic man manager. You saw that. You saw that with these two, right? Last year, Stephen Fleming won. This year, Gujarat Titans won under Gary Kirsten. Now, if I have to talk about someone like, if I have to talk about Ravi Shastri, he's a great motivator. Ravi Shastri, you are feeling down, you'll be like, चलो बच्चों 70 ओवर है आज ऑल आउट करना है, ऑल आउट कर भी
Yeah, I
सकता
mean,
है.
pitch gaya bhaad mein. Those kind of things is
हाँ,
what gets
pitch
into
गया
a
भाड़
player's
में.
head.
तू है मेरा लारा सहवाग और टेंडुलकर, तू जाके शतक मारेगा. और पृथ्वी शॉ ने जाके मारा भी. He told पृथ्वी शॉ before the match, तू है मेरा लारा सहवाग और टेंडुलकर, जाके उड़ा देना. I remember he turned to Parthiv Patel. Parthiv Patel came out stating this in a podcast. I think it was in a podcast or Crickbuzz Live. I'm not pretty sure. He told about he was opening in South Africa in the Johannesburg pitch, which was moving quite a lot. India won that match. He said, "तू जाके रबाड़ा का कबाड़ा कर ले, जा पार्थिव."
I think it was one of those YouTube channels. I think if I remember correctly, in Tanmay Bhatt's channel, I think Parthiv Patel came in and
I
said,
think it was
yeah,
on my channel. But
yeah.
it was lovely, man. I loved it. I mean, the way in which Ravi Shastri brings himself up, that is what Ravi Shastri brings, right? You saw this in test matches. You had that self-belief. With Ravi Shastri, you were never out. You always were in the game because you knew that you could turn it around. If a team is 100 for no loss, you could get them all at 150 because वापस टी के लिए लंच के लिए आएगा, रवि शास्त्री आके मुंह में बोल देगा, जा इन लोगों को सर उड़ा रहे हैं, ये कर दो वो कर दो. So that was what you get with Ravi Shastri. But with Rahul Dravid, I really do not know what you get at this very point. I love him as a person. I love him as a player. I seriously am doubting his coaching credentials because I didn't want. This is the reason why I didn't want him to take up Indian coaching, because I knew this day would come where I have to really question one of my idols. Where I have to really question him as a coach, and I'm really questioning him. Last year, the same time, we all were so happy and joyous that he took over Indian team, but his coaching credentials does not speak volume. Under 19 World Cup does not speak volumes about the coach.
And he hasn't had anything to show for it. I mean, India won a lot of T20 bilateral series this year, but you have to take that into account that most of it were home matches, or they were playing opponents which were not really like of their caliber. I mean,
yeah.
if yeah, just to get back to Aisha, I just feel that if today's match was fixed and in the Indian cricket board paid really well. I mean, they definitely paid very well to sort of win by 101 runs, something Pakistan could not do yesterday.
I mean, the
I
silence.
think
is
I'll
I mean,
very
let's get back into the
slowly
topic. I think let's
transition to a
let's
table.
let's ignore comments like that, to be very honest, because I don't want to take such comments as well. Let's talk about a
Yeah, I
issue
think
which
I
we
just
had
had
in
to
mind.
interject
transition
it.
I think I'll just transition to what Abel asked and ignore that. Let it just sit in silence. Yeah, I think Abel, you're right. I'll agree to what Ishfaq said. You need at international level. You don't need player. You don't need to be a grassroots level coach, or you don't in fact need coaches. I believe most often than not at international level, at least your head coach is a manager more than a coach, because these players are made. These players have come to international cricket, especially in a country like India, where I think at least 30% to 45, I mean 30 to 40% people would have already played cricket at some level, because that's how much cricket is spread in each cities, each village. We have cricket all over the place. So these players are coming from climbing all those levels and coming up there, and they're playing IPL as well. So these players are already made players. The only thing you need is to manage them, is to make sure you give them some confidence, some encouragement, and then of course if they have a career breaking flaw in their technique, then you help them improve that. So it's basically ironing out a few flaws here and there, but you need more of a man manager. In under 19 cricket, you can still argue to an extent that you still need someone to coach, because these players are still raw in early in their cricketing career. But in international cricket, you need a man manager more than a coach, and I think that's where, as you mentioned, you took some great names right there, right? And that is the reason why for example, Stephen Fleming, right, is one of the best examples there. He usually doesn't. He's much more of a man manager for CSK than a coach, right? He doesn't get involved much into the team meetings. Team meetings, for example, in CSK are, according to at least what players say, is not for more than 5 to 6 minutes, because they don't like to speak a lot. They already know what their roles are, and this is probably what management does, right? Players need those confidence, and right now, at least in this coach, you said, Abel, that you don't know what to expect from Rahul Dravid. I think no one
Yeah.
knows what to expect from this management. Every day we see a new playing 11. Every day, we see in any tournament or any team which has to chop and change so much, you realize that that team is not settled, especially in a game like cricket. Because in cricket, as I mentioned earlier, fatigue is not as, it doesn't set in as quickly as other sports because it's not as physical. It's more mental. Cricket is a much more mental game than it's a physical game, which is something I think
Hmm.
many people kind of, don't realize how much more mental fatigue it takes to go into cricket. Because we always say, when a batsman is batting, there's more concentration that is required because to play a longer innings, or a bowler who's bowling those long spells requires that focus. These are important aspects. So if a player is not self-confident, is not, so I think, for example, someone like an Ashwin, right? I feel if an Ashwin knows that he's going to play match day in out day out, he's going to toss the ball up more. But the moment an
Hmm.
Ashwin knows, okay, if I get hit for two sixes here and then I'll be dropped, he's not going to toss the ball up anymore because anyway he's a
Yeah.
bit insecure about tossing that ball up. And then, I mean, you saw, right? Even I think Sri Lanka, against Sri Lanka, it took him 3 overs to start tossing the ball up, and that's when he started bowling well. Today, of course, we saw him toss the ball up a lot more because I think there was a lot more confidence from the game coming yesterday. But that's the
Hmm.
thing, right? You need these players to be confident. Otherwise, it's just not going to work out. Especially because I think now Indian cricket team is in a transition period. You're seeing the likes of Rohit, Kohli entering the twilight of their career.
Hmm.
So this is where you require a coach to help that transition, give these players confidence.
I mean, absolutely agree with you on this because at times, what you need is a person who's there with you to understand the team environment, make those decisions, talk to players, make them feel comfortable. Like I'm pretty sure Rahul Dravid is doing that, but more than that, I also feel Rahul Dravid needs to be proactive as a tactician as well, not to overcomplicate things. He's been overcomplicating simple things. That's been a thing with Rahul Dravid even during his playing days. Some of the things which people criticize Rahul Dravid for is that 2007 World Cup exit, where I know Greg Chappell had a lot to do with the batting order. Greg Chappell had higher say than Rahul Dravid, but still, as a captain, you still in Indian cricket, I believe captain has the authority. Then comes the coach, then comes whoever it is. So as a captain, you still have the authority to talk to
No, no,
BCCI,
definitely.
to
I
actually
think
stop it.
you cannot select your 11 without the captain's approval. If
Absolutely, I
captain
think
does not decide on a particular batting slot or a particular player, I think the not just for the Indian team, for any team, the captain decides on majority of those decisions. And I think it everything has to go through the captain.
And yeah, I mean, cricket
absolutely.
is such a game, right, where captains play much more important role than coaches. Because coaches, once the players are on the field, it's not in the hands of the coaches anymore. It's in the hands of the captains.
Can I आंसर दिस क्वेश्चन? अफगानिस्तान प्लेयर का कैच उठा था कल। फजलक फरूज ने 2 फुल टॉस दिया था, तो पीएसएल का टिकट कंफर्म पेशावर जलमी के लिए। यही यही पूछना था। 2 फुल टॉस तो ऐसा दिया था कि मतलब प्लेट में कुछ दे के
I
मतलब
think,
लिटरली।
these comments are really degrading to the players because they gave 100%,
Yeah.
catches
Absolutely, and I
hard
think
dropped.
Ibrahim
So
Jaffer
I
is a
think you can
fantastic
even
player.
then, I mean, in that fashion, you're equally criticizing
I
or
don't
equally
understand what is the
degrading.
burn. I don't understand
Yeah,
what is
I
the
mean,
urge
I
over
don't
here.
like these kind of
I
comments
mean,
because I
bro,
feel
final
when
खेल रहे हैं यार।
you are going against
Why do
someone like
you
an,
people have to be bothered about today's match? I mean, I understand. I mean, here we don't
you're
want to
going
create like
against someone like
light.
an Arshdeep as well.
I
Arshdeep's
mean,
catch was the
dude.
worst. I mean,
I mean,
Arshdeep's drop was the worst in the
what
Asia
you're
Cup.
gonna give Arshdeep a PSL ticket because you dropped Asif
Yeah,
Ali?
that is just
Absolutely
not
nonsense.
fair. And
I mean, we
his
had,
catch
look.
probably
I mean, if that catch would
won
have
you guys a
taken
ticket
right
to the
now, we
finals.
never know.
Honestly, it'll be very difficult for Arshdeep, like for them to afford Arshdeep.
कल
Okay, I
जाने
think we're
वाला
just making this into
है,
India
क्या हुआ?
Pakistan
I
thing,
mean, to be
which
very
is
honest,
really
we
No,
have
no,
sad.
no,
talked
no.
about it with Aisha
We're
already.
just
We
having a
already
good time.
spoke about it, how players can be jaded. Even Nabi came out stating that how they were jaded and they were physically exhausted about it.
And I
I
think it
know
is very
you
unfair on
joined.
the Afghanistan team right now. They are the only team that had to play two consecutive games. And not just two
And that also
consecutive games,
India
as
Pakistan.
Jenny rightly mentioned, that two of the strongest favorites in the Asia Cup. You are playing two
Yeah.
strongest teams in the competition back to back. And a defeat like yesterday had to be deflating. I mean, it
To be
was
very
just
honest,
good
I'll also
to, that
answer
is
this
why I said
question.
that it was
Yeah,
just so good to see them complete the innings and score that 111 runs, play out those 20 overs.
to be
That
very
just
honest,
shows that they
let me
have
also say,
character.
how can you say Hong Kong, a team which gave India a fight, got 38 all out against you? It comes on the same paradigm, right? How did Hong Kong only score 38? The point over here, Aisha, is that when you play, if you have played cricket or if you have watched cricket, I know, to be very honest, when you go next day to play, when you have two back-to-back games, it's never easy to maintain the intensity. Secondly, talking about India, when you have such good performance when Virat Kohli takes the game away, that was prime Virat Kohli. Once he scored that 100, once he was on, after he crossed 70, he was batting like an alien. He was batting like how he was batting in 2016. He could absolutely find gaps to his wish.
And
He knew
that is
where
the
the
beauty
gaps
of
were. He
Kohli.
was
I mean,
operating
we
Yeah, I
from
all
think if you
all
had if
sometimes
you
criticize
had
Kohli for his slow strike rate, but you have to realize that he has one of the highest strike rates in the last 5 overs in T20
250,
internationals.
250, 250 is the strike rate, and it's not a small one at all, to be
And
very
I think
honest.
it has to match up with some of the world's best strike rates, along with somebody like Andre Russell, Abby de Villiers. I think Virat
yeah.
Kohli is right up there while finishing a T20
Absolutely.
innings.
And I
I
think
mean,
what's better about Virat Kohli's innings is the fact that none of those players who strike at 200, you don't see them carry their bat throughout. You see players
yeah.
like Shea Hope, Dimut Karnaratne, who carry their bat throughout the innings, who don't strike above 120, 130.
And that is
Yeah.
why I am more of a fan of Mohammad Rizwan rather than Babar Azam, because I feel Mohammad Rizwan has all the 5 gears that is required
Yeah.
for a T20I game. I mean, Babar
Yeah,
Azam is
probably I think
clearly
the
the
only
better batter
comparison you
when it
can
comes to the
draw.
ODI format or the Test format. But when it comes to the T20 format, I definitely feel that Mohammad Rizwan is the best Pakistan batsman that has come in quite some time, probably the best ever.
Yeah, for me, I think at least in T20, if you have two parallels, you can probably draw Kane Williamson in his prime. Not the Kane Williamson you're seeing right now, but the Kane Williamson in his prime, and then Mohammad Rizwan, who can do this. I think aside from Kohli, these are the only three batsmen I know who have all 5 gears, who can go hell for leather, and at the same time make sure that they play the anchor role. So it's just these three players, and you see any of the teams that have these three players have a great impact on any T20 game.
I mean, true, true. I mean, I have to give it to you people on that. As let's get back to the topic what we were talking, especially as the Indian team leading into the World Cup. So we also heard Rohit Sharma coming out in the press conference and saying that you'll expect a lot more changes in the coming matches. How important is it going to be for India not to do that? Because those kind of mistakes can really be catastrophic leading into that first game against Pakistan on 23rd of October, isn't it? So anybody, I want to hear it from you, then coming to Jaren on the same question as well, because often we've heard now you have to submit a squad within now 10 days, no, 7 days. You have to submit a squad on 15th of September. So what kind of squad will
Yeah.
you be submitting for that? I'm not sure about Bumrah's fitness. I'm not sure about Harshal Patel's fitness. So would you have them both in the team? Just taking a
Yeah,
your
yeah, I definitely
fast
think that
call
they are
like
going
that?
to have Jasprit Bumrah and Harshal Patel in the lineup, in the mix, because you have the sort of power to replace a player before the World Cup. You could draft somebody else, so they will keep somebody like a Deepak Chahar in the reserves, and probably Akshay Patel in the reserves for somebody like a Ravindra Jadeja. So that is, I think, the way to go about it, because you can't predict injuries, and 1 month is a long time to sort of get injured. I mean, with the current schedule that India is under, they are going to play 6 more games before T20 World Cup, and lots of practice sessions, and an injury can occur at any time. So replacements are available at any time. So you would definitely want to field your best squad for the World Cup. Having said that, what is your best squad for the World Cup? I think that is why I don't want India to sort of make so many changes after every game, because they themselves cannot decide who are the best 15 for their World Cup squad. So how will they name it if they don't have that clarity themselves? And I think this win, like a lot of people, like we are very happy that Virat Kohli got some runs, Bhuvneshwar Kumar got into form, but at the same time, this win does not really matter, and does not really change the context of the things that are happening right now. And I definitely feel India would have been happier. I mean, I am the happiest that Virat Kohli scored a century, but I would have been happier if like India could have had some sort of uh, some sort of a decision on whom they want to play, who are their best players. Because as I said, India right now has close to 7 or 8 middle order batsmen, has close to 6 fast bowlers in the contention, 4 to 5 spinners in the contention, 4 all-rounders in the contention. Whom are you going to play? 3 wicket keepers. I mean, even Ishan Kishan can be in the mix. I mean, definitely he's not in the
Yeah.
mix right now after the like whatever we have seen in the last 2 or 3 months. They have definitely asked him to play, like, be in the ODI format as a
Yeah.
replacement for Sanju Samson, who is a replacement for Rishabh Pant. So I mean, lots of replacements over there, but it is clear that Ishan
I mean,
Kishan
I
is not there.
wouldn't be
But still,
surprised if Sanju Samson gets a nod ahead in the Australian and South African series, and they be like, Sanju, you come and keep for us. Rishabh, you take a break, and
that
that's
that
just
is
going
my
to be just
concern.
all
They
chaos.
have close to 8 middle order batters fighting for a place of just 4, and probably at the most I think India can
I
go
mean,
with
it sounds good.
afford
It
to go
sounds
with
good,
5
but at the
players in
same
that
Yeah, but
time,
I
team.
think the issue
problem of
is,
plenty is
they're
the
making
issue.
a problem out of the plenty rather than having a problem of plenty, right?
Yeah,
They're making a problem out of the plenty. So
Yeah,
you
it's
have
not a
many
good
options,
thing.
you're just
Yeah.
increasing your options day by day.
And
That's
let
the
me
reason
also
why
make
it
it
was
very
critical
clear,
of,
right? If
that's
you
the
look at
reason
some of the
why,
greatest championship
yeah,
squads, they've made very few changes historically. If you
exactly.
talk about Mumbai Indians from 27, 2021, I can blindly tell you who are the starting 11. Because you knew who were the starting 11. Their roles are pretty clear. All what you had to do was the backups. Backups only come into effect when there is a big injury in place. So, Jaren, isn't it so important to keep
and
things
I
very
think some of
simple,
the
as we
most
already have a question
successful
on that?
teams and the most successful like competitions that any team has had is with consistency. The more you change in major tournaments, the more you end up losing. I think that is simply directly proportional. There is no two thoughts to it. I think you, if you tinker and change your squad too many times in a long competition, it is still fine, where you have time to recover like the IPL. But when you're talking about the T20 World Cup, there are just 2 or 3 games to make an impact. And you can't
Yeah.
really change and tinker too much. You have to keep that
Yeah.
fixed 11, or at least you can play around with 12 or 13 players at the
See,
most.
in IPL, another thing is that you still have enough time to come back into a tournament where
Yeah.
you will have first 3, 4 matches. If even if it goes bad, you still have 11 games to come back stronger into a tournament, and you can gain momentum and finish off on a high. You've seen that with Kolkata Knight Riders last year. You've seen that historically with Mumbai Indians as well. But in a multinational tournament like World Cup, if you're unable to find your perfect 11 in the first 2 games, you're out of the World Cup. And yet again, then you'll be pondering. Then you'll be
I mean,
wasting
you
another
saw that.
2 years.
You saw that in the Super Four. India did not have a fixed squad, or I mean a top
Yeah,
11, and we lost the first 2 matches, and we're out. I mean,
yeah,
in hindsight, India did not do many mistakes in those games, but they did enough mistakes to make sure that they don't end up in the finals, right? And that's my
right.
point, right? When it comes to a series or a bilateral series, you're playing against the opposition. But when you're playing in a multinational tournament or a knockout tournament, you're playing against yourselves. Because at the end of the day, you have oppositions which come here and there, change. But it's about you and how you work under the pressure of a knockout game. That's how you win matches, right? If you do everything right, then you have the best chance of winning a knockout game. Because for example, in a multinational tournament, you cannot prepare much before. Just you can only prepare just before the game. Because if, for example, in India can probably against South Africa, they can probably decide, okay, this is the lineup we're going to have, or these are the changes we can have. But entering into the T20 World Cup, you need to have a fixed squad, because that's just how it works, right? Because oppositions are going to keep coming at you. They're going to, and there are different
Yeah,
oppositions with different strengths. So you cannot decide, okay, every match I'm going to have to change players, because that doesn't work in a knockout tournament, in a
yeah,
tournament as such as the World Cup. And we saw that in the
yeah,
Asia Cup as well. India tried to make too many changes, and that backfired wherever. I
yeah.
mean, and that's something that India needs to be careful about. And these are the two things that I see that is lacking in this Indian team and a champion team, right? Champion teams do two things
Absolutely.
right. One, they have a fixed lineup, as you mentioned, Abel, and two, they make tough decisions, even if the decision is
Right,
very difficult to make. I'll give you one
right.
example. I think CSK, when they came back, they did not have. I mean, CSK, when they had the 2021, I think there was a season where it was 2020 or 2021 which they won. 2020, I think.
2021.
Yeah, I
2021.
think 2021, right? And even the season where they lost to Mumbai, they did not play Imran Tahir at all. Someone who's done really well for them. And that was a tough call for Dhoni to make, but it did not, because Imran Tahir did not fit into the balance of things. He had to make that choice. So I think that is something that
Absolutely.
this Indian team is lacking as well. They're not able to take those tough calls. They're not able to, and that's the reason why they make these easier choices, and them, not able to make those tougher calls, and that's the reason why we're struggling. So I think these are two things that
Absolutely.
the management needs to
I
get
mean,
together.
there is no two ways about it. If you have to be a champion team, you have to make tough calls. If it is to drop your best player from the lineup, it is to drop your best player from the lineup. It is for the betterment of the team. Ultimately, you go into tournament as a team, not as individual superstars, or you don't go into a tournament stating that we have got this player. If you have to win a tournament, you have to play as a team, because there will be situations in a tournament where you will be challenged as a team, where you will be put under pressure as a team. Then in that particular moment, it's about how you as a team react to those situations as well. And there's an age old saying that you don't change the winning combination. I know India have made a lot of changes, and India have got victories through these combinations by playing bilateral series. In bilateral series, you get victories. But in multi-nation tournaments, if you're not settled with 11, you don't get victories. Same thing that happened with India in the 2021 the World Cup debacle which India had. I'll call it a World Cup debacle because it was one of the worst World Cup performance after 2007 by India in the group stage. I know 2009 World Cup T20 World Cup was pretty bad, but this had to be pretty bad because
And to
India
think of
went
it,
into the
India
World
were the
Cup.
favorites, one of the favorites heading into the 2007 World Cup with a team
Absolutely.
that had like so much experience. Rahul Dravid, Saurav Ganguly, Sachin Tendulkar, Virendra Sehwag, MS Dhoni, Yuvraj Singh, Virendra Sehwag. I mean,
Yeah.
everybody. It had everybody, and still it
Yeah.
performed so badly. And with the ball as well, Anil Kumble. I mean, some of the legends never got to play the game again because of that play. Especially in the ODIs because of that debacle.
Absolutely, absolutely. I totally agree with you on this because at times you always, we had a point from Saloni over there, which I've highlighted as well. It is important to keep things simple. It's easier said than done. Yeah, if you talk about Chennai Super Kings, as Jen already mentioned, Chennai Super Kings have got a very simple philosophy. It is to stick on with the playing 11, back them to the tilt, and expecting they'll perform. And they do deliver it. If a team has got 4 titles in a high octane competition like IPL, they've done something or the other right. If I've talked about Australia in 2000 from 1999 to 2007, you knew their lineup, which was pretty simple. At times, you had 1 or 2 injuries here where they had to make some tough choices to bring a replacement. Other than that, their opening lineup, their opening batters, everybody were pretty much, it was a by-hearted thing for every kid out there. It was going to be Matthew Hayden and Gilchrist who's going to open. You're going to have Ricky Ponting at number 3. Then you're going to have Damien Martin. This is what Australian team was, and that is what makes these teams so useful as well. You need to have a set lineup which is going to go on to take on some big players as well. Sunny Mani, your thoughts on this? Now, Australian series, South African series being so important, who are the players you would like to see? If you have to experiment at all, who are the players you would like to see to be experimented?
See, I think India, more or less, according to me, has the squad, has at least sort of 7 or 8 players who are going to play in the first game of the T20 World Cup. So they just need to decide on the wicket keeper, whether it is going to be Rishabh Pant or Dinesh Karthik. I think that is going to be a very interesting race between Dinesh Karthik and Rishabh Pant. I would really love to see who gets the upper hand, and I would love to see somebody like a Dinesh Karthik get to bat. I mean, we all know Dinesh
Yeah.
Karthik is a finisher, but they are not playing Dinesh Karthik in the crucial matches where India are losing wickets. They are playing Dinesh Karthik in matches against Hong Kong, in matches against Afghanistan, where he does not really get to bat. So I mean, yeah, that is one thing I would definitely like to see Dinesh Karthik bat for a longer span of time to see if
Yeah.
he's good enough to replace Rishabh Pant in that T20 World Cup team. Another spot for me, another spot that has been concerning for me is the vacancy that Ravindra Jadeja has created. I think Akshar Patel should be in the in the race as the firm favorites, but I would also I also believe that somebody like a Ashwin is a front runner as well. I think Ashwin can really compete for that number 7 slot as well, because Ashwin too is a good batter. Like if you want to play 4 seamers and I mean 3 seamers and Hardik Pandya, you might as well go with Ashwin as your fifth or sixth bowling option. So Ashwin
Yeah.
and Akshay Patel, between them for the all-rounder slot, I really don't think Deepak Huda should be in the race for that all-round slot. If Deepak Huda has to be in the race for the team, it has to be in that middle order slot at that number 3, number 4, number 5. Probably a replacement for somebody like a Surya Kumar Yadav or Virat Kohli if they get injured. Not beyond that. And another thing in the bowling department that I'm really interested to see is how some of the pacers go. I am pretty sure that Deepak Chahar is going to get a longer rope in the 6 games that is going to come. But I definitely feel that the pace department is already fixed, because if Bumrah is fit, you have Bumrah, you have Harshal Patel, if he's fit, that is. But you have Bumrah, Bhuvneshwar Kumar, and Arshdeep Singh as your 3 bowlers, and along with Yuzvendra Chahal, that makes 4. So you have Hardik Pandya and Akshar Patel or Ashwin as that fifth or sixth bowling combination.
Mm.
So I think this is
Mm.
the combination that I would like to see in Australian conditions, of course, because and I think all the batters, like the top order batters like Rohit Sharma, Virat Kohli, just loves playing in Australia, and they have very good records. KL Rahul, Rishabh Pant, all of them have extremely, Hardik Pandya especially has a very good record playing in Australia. So I would not change anything in that lineup, and I would definitely love to see how Surya Kumar goes in pitches that
I mean,
bounce, because
there's an
he's a very good
interesting thing
player of
about
pace.
Suryakumar Yadav. I mean, we highly rate Suryakumar Yadav the player, but he's still not stepped up in a big game for India. So that's slightly concerning,
Yeah,
and
that
it's
is why
starting to.
I told you in the after that game against Hong Kong that I don't want Surya Kumar to score 68 of 26 against Hong Kong. I mean, I'm happy with it. Everybody's happy with it, but I would have been happier if he would have scored a 45 out of 25 against Pakistan.
Yeah.
He did score that
Absolutely.
34 against 29 against Sri Lanka.
Absolutely.
That
I
made
mean,
me
just
happy.
looking at his records in the T20 World Cup, in the Asia Cup recently concluded as well. In the big games, he's not yet stepped up, and that's slightly concerning. I know, it's still it's early days for Suryakumar Yadav in international cricket, but then the times do run out pretty fast for you, and you don't want to be a player who's just performing the bilaterals. And when it comes to the big matches, you are unable to take up the pressure. I know Suryakumar Yadav is a champion player. I've seen that in big situations like the IPL, where he steps up in big situations. So he's a clutch player, is what I like to believe, and let's see how he goes about it as well. And it's so important to have clutch players, to be very honest, because clutch players are the ones who make all the difference in crunch moments. I know you'll have players who will do very good throughout the group stages, but when it comes to crunch moments, you need these characters to step up. And Virat Kohli in clutch moments have done historically well. Though in recent past, you can say his records hasn't been really good, but at the same time, you really depend on Virat Kohli. You really depend on a player like, I used to always depend on a player like Suresh Raina, for example. Suresh Raina was a
Yeah.
clutch player for Team India. Yuvraj Singh was a clutch player for Team India. Mahendra Singh Dhoni was a clutch player for Team India. You do miss a trio even now, because those three used to actually take India out of big holes in clutch situations when your top order used to fail. I'll give you the biggest example was the 2011 World Cup, both semi-final and the quarter-final. You were in a spot of bother. That's where Suresh Raina came in and played those cameos. Yuvraj Singh took India over the line. Mahendra Singh Dhoni, 3 down, India 111, came in and played that knock of
I
91.
think bringing in Suresh Raina in place of Yusuf Pathan to bat at number 7 was the sort of the change that won India the 2011 World Cup,
Yeah,
because 70 runs needed of 70 balls when Dhoni got dismissed in that quarterfinal game against Australia, the defending world champions, the three-time defending world champions. I think it was a master stroke to get in Suresh Raina, and that is where Dhoni is so good. Dhoni was so good. He understood what the players' capabilities were and used them in the right
Yeah.
sense. Nobody would have
absolutely.
imagined Suresh Raina to come in at number 7 in a team. I mean, he's a
Yeah.
way better player to come in at number 7 for any team.
But you
But
saw
he
he
did come in
stabilized
at
the
number
ship
7 for a
very
reason.
well on that day. He came in and he made sure that Brett Lee did not really get the breakthrough, and made sure he played out the spinners very well. And Yuvraj Singh and Suresh Raina over the years have complemented each other to take India over the line in multiple occasions. And you also saw these partnerships coming along, even in 2013 Champions Trophy. You saw them play together in multiple multi-nation tournaments. You need these kind of clutch players to step up in important situations. That's what India have been lacking in the last few years. In crunch situations and important matches, you're not able to find players who are able to step up. I think Ravindra Jadeja is one of them. Ravindra Jadeja always steps up in clutch moments. He's a different character altogether. Hardik Pandya also tends to step up, but we're not able to find that Yuvraj, Raina, Mahendra Singh Dhoni kind of players who step up in these kind of moments. Those are players who really thrive upon, and that's what India really needs at this point. Jared,
But
your
yes,
thoughts?
I
Who
mean,
can be a clutch
I'll
player for
bring
you?
an insight to you, Abel, here, right? I mean, you look at the origins of these players, right? We spoke about Yuvraj, we spoke about Suresh Raina, we spoke about Jadeja, or even Dhoni, right? Dhoni was backed by Saurav Ganguly, even though he failed multiple times. I mean, he failed in a series against Pakistan, then he failed in a series against Bangladesh, then he got his chance. Then, I mean, he was backed. Yuvraj Singh, in a similar fashion, was backed by Saurav Ganguly for a long time. Dhoni backed someone like a Suresh Raina, Jadeja. For example, when Jadeja was brought at 2 crore by CSK, everyone criticized that move. Everyone was like, this player won't last. He is one season wonder. Look at what Dhoni's made out of him. And Dhoni made sure, even in the Indian team, when then you had someone like a Shikhar Dhawan, Rohit Sharma, Jadeja, all these players kept failing. And there were many players who were knocking on the doors, right, of the Indian team in that era, 2011, 2013. Everyone, all the journalists criticized MS Dhoni for being favorites, for playing favorites with his players, with the players he liked. But we won trophies there, right? He soaked all those criticisms, and he gave those players a long run. Even as late as someone like a Shane Watson, many players, when
Yeah,
many pundits came out to say that he's done, he is not a T20 batsman anymore, he's not an opener anymore,
exactly.
and then he
When it
won
mattered the
those
most for
clutch
Chennai Super
moments.
Kings, yeah, when it
Yes,
mattered the most for Chennai
I
Super Kings,
mean,
he delivered.
you question the tag of Dad's army, but he's built a formidable Dad's army. The reason why he doesn't want to let go of these players, Dhoni, is because once he feels these players can do it, then he just doesn't allow anyone else to take up the place. And it's not like CSK; it's never had a good bench strength. But that's what he does, right? And that's the reason why I say that Dhoni was someone, or Dhoni's management was something, someone where which would take tough calls. I know, I mean, and that is something that we've seen lacking in Indian cricket as more and more players have come up. I think that is something that we need to come back
I
into
mean,
the
it is
into the Indian
also
lineup. I
not a
think
good thing
that
to
is
have
where
you have a lot of pool, right? You need to have a narrowed pool. I know you have a lot of talent in the country. That's also, it's a very
no, I
good
think
thing, but it also,
problem of plenty is a good thing, but it is the issue is you're overcomplicating things, as one of the comments said, right? You're making a problem out of the plenty rather than having the problem of plenty. It's all right as long as you know who's there, who is where in the pecking order. But here there's no pecking order, it's just a line, and people are just randomly being picked, I feel sometimes. It's not even like you're picking horses for courses. That's not even the strategy here. It's just who has played the least games is getting an opportunity again. That is,
yeah, yeah,
there
totally
comes
agree.
a moment where it doesn't work, and that's my point, Abel. This middle order, right? How many times has this middle order played together? We are questioning this middle order failing, but how many times have we seen this middle order play together? Now finally we have this middle order playing together, and again in this Asia Cup we have chopped and changed.
Yeah, I
So I think
agree with
that
you
is
on that.
where,
Yeah, it's not a
how
good
many
thing.
matches has
It's not a good
Dhoni,
thing, especially into
Yuvraj
a World
Singh
Cup.
played together, right? They played so many
Mm,
matches together. They know, they understand each other, so that they can, at on the pitch when two batsmen are batting, they're the only ones who are there. There is no coach, there's no
yeah,
captain in their ears, right? So these players need to
yeah.
step up, and unless you don't expose these players to each other and build that chemistry, things are not going to work out. And that's the reason why there's this hole in the middle order. Why does Rohit Sharma and Virat Kohli play so well together? Is because they've played for so long.
Yeah, truly. First luck for the IPL ticket confirmed. He's already playing in the IPL actually. So he's actually already playing in the IPL, and he's done a decent job in IPL as well. So I mean, yeah, I mean, I understand where all these chatters are coming from. We'll take it in a sporting way. Having said that, thank you guys for joining. It was wonderful taking all the comments. It's been a wonderful night for Virat Kohli and all his fans. It's a long wait which has come to an end. A huge sigh of relief from our end. And 1,020 days is what the count has been. And hopefully from now on, and you saw that with Virat Kohli, once he gets going, that consistency is always there. He got that 50, he got the 35, he got that 50, then he got the 60. I know a small drop then with the duck, but then he managed to pull it up with 122. So that's what you get with Virat Kohli, the batter. And he's well and truly back, is what I like to believe at this very point. And he'd like to build on from here on. And for Indian team, a lot of tough calls to be made with the World Cup squad is going to be announced in a week's time from now on. So it'll be interesting to see who India really goes into the World Cup squad with. Who are they really going to have back in the team? Because but Jasprit Bumrah, I'm not pretty sure about his fitness. Harshal Patel is fit, is what I'm hearing. So he'll be back for the Australian series, hopefully, and for the World Cup as well. And they might have to drop someone like an Avesh Khan, or I don't know, maybe even Ravichandran Ashwin, because you can't go in with three spinners in the World Cup. The mistake what you did in the Asia Cup. So the World Cup is in Australia, so you have to make decisions. Ravindra Jadeja's fitness is an issue. A lot of things to be answered for Team India right before the World Cup. You got 6 games in hand, and 6 crucial games, as one would say it. Thank you, gentlemen. It was wonderful taking all your questions. And have a good night, Sandeep and Jen. Bye bye.
Thank
Good
you.
night,
Thanks
good
for
night,
having us.
Sandeep.
Good
Good
night.
night, guys.